Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Untitled Reviews. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are dramas. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about The Bear, Season 4, Episode 7. Great episode, fantastic episode. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So it took me a couple minutes. I ended up having to pause the TV for a bit, and I happened to notice, oh, this is an hour long. I was like, oh boy, it's a wedding. I'm like, is this going to be Fish's Part 2? And it's not. In fact, I think it's kind of an interesting, beautiful, I guess, juxtaposition or parallel. I don't know what would be the right word, but it's just like, it's almost like a catharsis. It's like the chaos that is Fishes. This almost seems like obviously the antithesis of it. Like there's a little bit of chaos, little friction, but it's like there is this catharsis where like everything's kind of okay. Where it's just like when we're talking about Fishes, everything's just F to the degree, so but obviously we open with Richie kind of being a hot mess, nervous, and even he's kind of beating himself up. He's like, well, what am I being nervous and being such an idiot about? Like, what about your dad? Is your dad okay? It's like, yeah, he's enjoying 5 days off, he's still resting and stuff like that. It's like, good, and he's just beating himself up because he's like, oh man, the speech is supposed to be this and that, and he's just kind of stressing about it. I think it's interesting because he ended up bringing Sid as his plus one, which once again is so beautiful because you're like, who would have ever thought their relationship would be where it is? Like, obviously, like, he changed a lot in season 2, and she was proud of that, and they've come to lean on and rely on each other and trust each other wholeheartedly. It's like, never would have known their relationship would be, they'd have the dynamic they'd have now when you saw how they started in season 1, so... Okay, so they go into the wedding, and there's just so much in this episode. I'm going to try and get everything, but I'm going to miss some stuff, so I do apologize ahead of time. First and foremost, I love Chester being like, apparently he knows Frank because Frank's mom and Chester's mom are actually best friends. And it's like, oh, so you must be tight with Frank. It's like, well, Frank fired me twice. I'm like, what's that story about? And I love that he's like, oh, so you must be tight. Like, Marcus is like, oh, you must be tight because he invited you to the wedding. It's like, he didn't. It's like, what? His mom invited me to the wedding. He did. And then, like, Marcus is like, man, we're going to get kicked out of this wedding. You always do this all the time. I'm like, what is that story? Because I even love later on, he's like, yo, what's up, Frank? We're wearing this. He's like, what are you doing here? He's like, your mom invited me. Why are you looking so crazy? And then just Frank's like, Mom. I'm like, what is that story? Did y'all work together? Or, like, what was the context of him firing Chester twice? What is that about? I'm like, I love that so much. There's so much of that where we don't get any stories. And I want to know the story. We get the Francine back finally, and I was like, I know it has to be someone big. Freaking Brie Larson! I was like, that's sick, dude. I didn't know who to expect. That caught me off guard. I was like, Brie freaking Larson, dude! And just her being like, oh, hi, Nat. And like, it's so interesting because when Natalie mocked her like a couple of episodes back, and that might have been an episode, I can't remember if that was one. No, it was episode 2, I believe. That episode, like the way she like mimics her voice, and she's kind of got like that higher pitch, like not dainty. I don't know what the right, like kind of that very like prissy up, like higher registered voice or whatever. And she goes, and I love that. Literally, Nat just talked to Jimmy, being like, "Yo, tell you like I love you," and he's like, "Don't worry, I've got your back. I love you." And then started kind of being like, "Oh, hey, Francie," because he even just said her like, "Yo, I don't want to be in the middle of like family stuff. It's just because it gives you everyone like the shits or whatever." And she's like, "What are you talking about?" And it's like, well, the family drama of it all. We never still found out what went down between Francine and Natalie, because maybe it came up during that whole like them like. It kind of reminds me of, I think meant to be a parallel of like in episode 4, the whole Jimmy and Richie thing about like, and we don't even know how she fell down those stairs. You get bits and pieces of the story, and then you get that end tag. You're like, wait, I'm missing so much of the story because you two were yelling on top of each other. And that episode ended with a catharsis, and this episode kind of ends a similar fashion for Francine and Natalie. We also found out apparently they hooked up or something. Because my initial thought was like, we're not going to find out like Francine and Pete hooked up. Like I was thinking like, oh, I'm crazy. That's why I didn't even talk about it in episode 2, because I was like, that's such an asinine thing to think. Oh, apparently they hooked up. I'm like, yeah, that's interesting. I even love later on Pete's like, you're not in love with her or something, right? She's like, what, Francine fact? No. I was like, I love that so much. But it's like, Because like I think it's Ted that drops that, and then Pete's like, "What? No, they didn't hook up." And they look at each other and they're like, "Well." Also, I love it so much when like the facts do the whole well thing, because even Brie Larson doing a well, yeah, and just like I love it when actors are. I mean, first you got Neil doing that, then you got Ted doing that, then you got Sammy doing it, now you got Francie. It's just a fact thing, and it's so infectious that when the facts are having that back and forth, they don't just do it with themselves. Other people get involved because Nat was doing the whole yeah thing, and then obviously like even Evie does it too, like the yeah thing that the facts do. So I'm like, I love how contagious that is amongst like this group in this family. Speaking of Pete, I love when he's sitting down. He's with Ted and Neil, and there's a whole conversation about like investing in a painting or whatever, but you don't get to own it. You only get to own a portion of it. He's like, wait, I'm trying to understand this. And then Stevie's there like, what do you not get about it? I love it because it's like the parallel of the Christmas party where it's like they're trying to get him. Well, first they try to get Jimmy in on something. He was like, no, that's stupid. Then they try to get Stevie in on it. He's like, cool, I'm down for it. Anything you guys do, it's all you guys always deliver. And I guess that's why he's in on it too. And he's like, I still don't. He's like, why can't you wrap your head around this, Pete? Like, why would you take home a painting you don't even own a part of? He's like, are these people you do business with? And he's like, well, I don't consider it work, Pete. I'm like, what are you talking? Like, I think it feels like it's a thing that Stevie's involved with just for shits and giggles. Once again, if it's something the facts are involved in, he's in it for shits and giggles, and drawing people in more is for shits and giggles. I mean, he was waiting for the chaos because him and Claire Bear are talking. I'm gonna call her Claire Bear, Jesus. Him and Claire are talking to Frank about everything. He's like, oh, about the family and stuff like that, and it's just like, no, it's all gonna be fine. It's like, it's a lot, but it's gonna be fine. And Claire's like, should we have warned him? It's like, why? It's like, nah, you'll find out. It's like, well, you stayed in his family. He's like, yeah, because I do enjoy it. It's a lot of fun. It's like Stevie's a sociopath because he's like, he gets off on this stuff. He loves how dysfunctional his family is. He loves the chaos, especially because Donna's here too. And it's like, oh, we got to worry about, Double D. And I'm like, he lives and thrives for this. Sadly, Michelle couldn't stick around for long. Oh my God, her interaction with Donna. You could tell she was almost like, I kind of don't want to interact with Donna. Donna's like, hey, Michelle, how are you? You look good. You go good. It's like, I forgot what it was, but basically she was like, oh, how are you? She's like, oh, I'm good. It's like, are you good? And Donna's kind of like, yeah, and walks away. And even then, Michelle knows she fucked up because she was like, shit. It's like, did I set off a nuke just now by doing that? It's like, no. I mean, that's some stuff she'll probably have to be dealing with. Lee will probably have to be contending with later, but yeah, that was pretty rough. But I mean, to be fair, and I think Donna not staying for a long period of time, I think benefited and helped a lot. Because once again, I was worried this was going to be vicious, but like I said, it's a lot more of a calmer episode. The Natalie and Francine stuff is like the most like heated it gets, but for the most part, everything else is pretty low key and chill. But yeah, Michelle is talking to Tiff because Tiff is worried because like her mom isn't here apparently in Boulder with a new guy, and it's like she's supposed to be there with her work, but like with a guy, and the whole conversation about like, right, you're kind of sad, but there's also a little bit of hope, but there's also disappointment. And even later on, she's like, what's the word I'm looking for? And she later on was like, was apprehension the word I was trying to go for? Tiff's like, yeah, that sounds about right. But it's this complicated thing about like her family not being here, and I love that she talks about it later on with Jimmy, where she was like, with her and Richie getting divorced, she was scared she was going to lose to Berzato because she's like, look at my family, like there's hardly any, like she even says like 75% of the people at this wedding aren't people she knows, and even Frank was like, there's a lot of Berzatos around here every time I'm looking, and if it's not a Berzato, it's someone directly connected to the Berzatos, like the Fax or a Sydney or or whatever, who are all in all intensive purposes basically honorary, Berzatos in a lot of ways. So But Tiff was so worried about like the divorce, she'd lose his family because like the Berzados are like the only family she knows. That's also why she wanted Richie to come to the wedding too. It's like, you are my family. You know, like crazy my family situation is. Literally none of them are here. They're scattered all around, not even here for my wedding day, but the Berzados are. And it's just like, which even Uncle Jimmy was like, yeah, that's kind of fucked that that's the situation is, that you kind of want the Berzados, but at the end of the day, you're stuck with us. That is never going to change, and that means the world to her. I mean, it showcases that they're all here. I mean, even Carmi being here, which even Tiff knows, like, yeah, I know this is a lot for. She's like, I mean, you've already seen me. You can bail if you want to. To be fair, Carmi stuck it out, but it's because he's trying to like stick it out, because he was a little like overwhelmed at first. All the people around brings up a lot of pain, trauma, him being, you know, just awkward around people, just not knowing how to behave. And then immediately after he's kind of freaking out a little bit, who does he run into? Daryl mom. And it's just kind of like, they really don't know how to like operate around each other because they haven't seen each other in years. And she's like, oh my God, you look so good. You look so grown. It's like, yeah. You know, and it's like, oh, you met Frank and stuff, in which he met Frank. And it's like, and even Tiff was like, oh, what do I call you now? And he's like, no, I'm still cousin. And she's like, this is my cousin Carmen. I'm like, that's so beautiful, you know? I mean, once again, it's not like Richie was their cousin, but it's like, nah, I mean, we're family through and through. Might not be blood related, which that ended up being a whole conversation too, because it's like, oh yeah, like I'm married into the family, and it's like, how is this all working out? And it's like, oh, you know, so and so, well, Shelly, because he's like, he brings up one person who apparently has 2 sets of kids, and then one person or set ended up adopting or whatever, and it's apparently that's where Michelle comes into play, I think is what they were referencing. So it's like, she's not a Berzado by blood, she's a Berzado by adoption. Like, I think she was adopted into like a Berzado who had another set of family, and that other set of family ended up, well, at least another set of kids, and that set of kids had Michelle and adopted Michelle. That's the way I grasped what Stevie was saying. I mean, it kind of plays into like, the Berzado family is such a fucking chaotic mess that of course the family tree would be a chaotic mess, but it's like, kind of wouldn't have it any other way. I do love that both Richie and Sid kind of came to the rescue to rescue Carmi. It's like, oh, they need you in the kitchen. I'm like, that was obviously bullshit just to kind of get him away, because they're like, yeah, you met with Donna, let's not have you too much around each other. We don't need either one of you crashing out. So what ends up happening, we'll get to Carmi in a second, but Sid ultimately ends up getting left alone with his mom, and they're having this conversation, and she has history in the kitchen, at the what was originally a beef. She's like, once her husband bought the place, she was there pretty often and got put to work, and it's just kind of like, yeah, the place is so noisy, and just like, can anyone in this place shut the fuck up? But Sid's come to kind of like know that, but also understand, like, I kind of like the noise afterwards. Like, no, it kind of makes sense. You're not crazy for believing in it, and liking that. And they had a really interesting conversation about what it's like working with Carmi, and it's like, oh, how is he doing? What is he like as a coworker? And it's like, yeah, he's very dedicated, very hard on himself. He's always trying and kind of there for people. She even talks about like what we learned last season. In fact, the first episode of last season, but she had talked about this in episode 8, the season 1 finale, but we get to see it a little bit in episode 1 of season 3. Was she went to New York and had one of Carmi's meals, and she's like, don't tell him about it. I'm pretty sure he doesn't know this, but it's like, yeah, I had to spread it across 3 credit cards, but she's like, it was worth it. It was like the best thing I've ever eaten. And it's like, it's kind of sad. There's like a little sad takeaway that she has, where she's kind of, that Donna has, where she's like, oh, it's kind of, funny, and Sid's like, what were you talking about? She's like, well, the fact of the matter is that Carmi's closer to his work family than he is his own family. But she's like, no, like, work family is like part of the family. It's like, just it's all one big family, so, and she's like, and she's like, well, I'm gonna go. And it's just like, the sad thing is, it's like, well, I mean, because that's also reflected by, the conversations that were had like last season with like Marcus and Natalie, where Natalie had brought up to Marcus, it's like, I like looking at this book because it lets me get to know Carmi in a way I never got to know him before. It's like, I like learning about him. It's this thing of like, somehow the people he works with end up being the people he's closest with. And I think it's like the bullshit that is their family sometimes. It's easier to kind of like connect with people outside of that because you don't have the baggage of your family dragging you down, even though it's always persistently there. It just manifests itself differently, and it's not like a noose around your neck sometimes, which is very effed up to say, but sometimes your family shit is just dragging you down so much that it's like, once you're kind of outside of it, even though that noose is still there, even though that baggage is still there, you can kind of assimilate to some degree with people and kind of find and build a camaraderie because it is outside of that family stuff. But it's like, fixing the family stuff is so hard when you're so deep and entrenched in it, and kind of outside of it, it's a little easier. Granted, once again, Carmen still like struggles to just adjust to life and stuff. So it's just an interesting and complicated dichotomy that kind of gets brought up in that moment. And so she leaves, but it's not like I think it's just maybe she reached her point before she could really be. But it's just like seeing Carmen was enough, knowing he's okay. I don't know if Nat interacted with her mom at all. To be fair, like the person she needed to interact with was both Sid and Carmen. It's like, right, like, because Sid is probably the person outside of like the Rosado family that Carmi is the closest with, which is ironic considering like there is still that bit of distance even throughout. Which, speaking of Carmi, he was in the kitchen with Uncle Lee, which like, oh, Lee's here, and it's like, who invited you? He was like, well, your mom did. Oh, give me some of that nicotine gum. It's like, oh, when did you quit smoking? A couple months ago. What about you, Lee? He's like, oh, I haven't quit yet. Like, okay. They had a really interesting conversation because it turns out that Lee saw, because I thought Carmi never went in at all when it came to the funeral. Apparently he did go inside. I thought he was just waiting outside the entire time because the scene from season 3 paints it like that, but it seems like he actually did go inside, but then he came out. Lee's the only one that saw him leave, and he's like, did you tell him? He's like, no, because I didn't feel like it was my place to do that. He was like, because he's like, I'm surprised to see you went to Mikey's funeral considering like all the bad blood there. He's like, well, me and Mikey actually got pretty close. He's like, what? It's like, yeah. Which even we're like, considering the blowout you guys had like a couple years ago, that is hard to believe. He's like, the irony is when Carmi left is actually when they got closer. Because I think without Carmi around, there's a lot. I think well, Lee said it himself. He says like, the moment I stopped trying to like play the role of father, like it's not, because I think that's a little bit of what Mikey's issue was with him. It's like, it feels like you're like stepping in for her dad. He's like, dude, no. He even telling Carmen, he's like, you and your mom, we're just old friends. Like anytime I'd stop by to see your mom, Mikey be there. We get to talking, mainly talking about you a lot, and I think one of the things Mikey was able to kind of let go is, hey, my brother's out there. He's successful. I'm hearing about what he's doing. I can feel comfortable. I think it's almost this parallel you can draw with like a parent worrying about their child. And then like, like Sid and her dad, that whole conversation last episode. I think a similar thing happened where Mikey was kind of able to kind of let go of some of that worry. And like, no, like, oh, my brother's out there, and it kind of alleviated some of like, I think some of the guilt he was holding on to, where it's just like, I want my brother to kind of I want him to spread his wings, and I feel like here his wings are being clipped, but now I'm like, oh, I'm seeing my brother out there, he's living life, his wings are spread, it feels good, and I think it took a little bit of that pressure off of Mikey that he was kind of bottling up and holding on to, because Lee also has that conversation with Carm about their mom being like, she's not bottling stuff up as much. She's actually like, I mean, he talks about like, I'm going to meetings, and so is she. Like, she's doing better because she's talking stuff out and like, and not letting it build up. She's talking stuff out before it builds up. And so kind of showing the progress she's made, the progress Lee's made. I love the whole thing. You are always kind of a prick. And Lee's like, and? So He at least he can recognize, like, I recognize I'm an asshole. I'm an acquired taste, but even beyond being an acquired taste, I know I'm an asshole. Oh man, that's just, once again, him and Mikey being so close, I think is so interesting. It was also really sad too when Carmi admits like why he felt like he didn't deserve to be at his brother's funeral, because he's like, I left. That has been eating away at him, the guilt of I left, and he's like, I basically left everyone else to like harbor and deal with everything else. He left his sister behind to deal with it. He left Mikey because he's probably blaming himself of like, right, we didn't keep in touch. And the fact is that Mikey offed himself is also a byproduct of because I left. Because I left my brother to have to deal with everything. And he was already dealing with stuff that I didn't know about because we weren't as close as we used to. That guilt is there. And I think Nat probably has some of that as well, where it's like, why didn't I see the signs? I'm kind of like the fixer in the family. I try to coddle and try to, specifically with their mom, make sure she's okay. And I think a lot of that's applicable to her brother. She didn't have to worry as much with Carmi because he was away, but Mikey was still here. So, but Lee tells him, oh, that's stupid to hold on to that. He's like, the fact of the matter is you leaving was a good thing, so don't bust your own balls about it, you know? A lot of this episode, I think, and this season in general has been a very cathartic season for Carmi in a lot of ways. A lot of growth, a lot of him. Like, once again, we've made a lot of progress. Like, except from like the few times him and Richie have had their back and forths. For the most part, even in the kitchen, we have not seen Carmi yell. He's been changing. He has changed. The date question then becomes like, well, is it going to stick or not? And it seems like it is, and he's trying to get more comfortable and better about a lot of stuff. So I just think that's kind of beautiful, and especially I think that conversation with Lee saying like, oh yeah, your brother told me this, and this, and it's like, oh, I believe you. He's like, and he told me he was proud of you. And that was always something Carm never really fully knew, how his brother felt about him. Once again, the restaurant's like, I don't know how he felt about a restaurant, how he felt about me. And now it's like hearing that, knowing like, right, Mikey did care. He was proud of me. He talked about me a lot. I thought, like I said, a beautiful catharsis. You have Francine talking to Ted and Neil about, like, you know, it's like, yeah, why can't you be happy for us? Like, you always scare away my girlfriend. She's like, what are you talking about? She's like, I think Kelly, he's like, I think Kelly's the one. She's like, oh, that girl outside? No, she's not. You were staring at her shoes. It's like, yeah, but she had bad shoes, and that's kind of a telltale sign. It's like, I love you guys, but get your head in the game. It's like, what it is? She's like, no, it's not. It's like, it's big sis mode where she's just kind of like, you guys are fucking up. Like, it's my job. Like, none of your girlfriends are good enough. They're like, no, they were. It's like, yo, Kelly's the one. And he's building up, like, because he wants to make it a special moment when he tells Kelly he loves her. And she's like, you had something to tell me, right? It's supposed to be big, right? He's like, I love you. And she's like, I love you too. I'm like, get it, Ted. That's awesome. Would have never thought that situation. Because, like, once again, like, they met in season 2's finale where Ted was almost checking her. Like, yeah. When Neil and Ted went to go check on her and ended up ultimately telling her about Carmi in the freezer. So I love that that's got grown into what it is. It's actually really, really, really cute. Another great moment in the episode is just the lead up to the table thing where, like, Frank's like, hey, Richie, can I talk to you for a minute? It's like, yeah, she's under the table. And Richie's like, what are you under the table for? He's like, you want to come out? She's like, no. And he's like, okay, so what's this about? He's like, I think it's something I did. He's like, what did you do, yell at her? He's like, no, God, no, I wouldn't do that. It's like, well, what's this about? He's like, I think it's about, that, you know, it's like, are you acting, you know, he's like, all this. And Frank's like, what are you talking about? He's like, I don't know, weddings, the whole thing is making people act goofy. He's like, am I acting goofy? He's like, honestly, I don't really know you that well, dude. He's like, I think it's about the dance. It's like, then you're the the stepfather-daughter dance. He's like, oh, wow, so you are acting goofy. He's like, fuck, I knew it. I am goofy. It's like, you're stressing out, and that's the beautiful parallel. Like, he's a nervous wreck, and Richie was just a nervous wreck. And I think the whole situation made Richie feel better, and I love that. I thought that was so dope. Where it's like, okay, so you got to learn how to deal with this guy. You got to get underneath that table and see her. He's like, what? She's like, go ahead. Go under there. Try to make some progress. And eventually Claire comes over and it's like, wait, what are we doing? It's like, Evie's under the table. We're trying to, like, coax her out. We think it's about the dance. And so initially it's like, Richie can't get her from underneath and neither can Frank. But I love the whole, like, you know, because for Frank, he's a nervous mess because he's like, yo, every time you drop Evie off and we talk, she just talks about you and how amazing you are. Which, I mean, God, you're an amazing father, amazing guy. That's why I want this whole thing like between us all to work out, because I don't want it to be strange. Made that all clear last season too, like the few scenes we had with Frank. But it's like I don't want things to kind of be weird and awkward between us. And I love Richie's like, hey, it bothers me as much, but like every time she's with me, all she does is talk about you, Frank this, Frank that. He's like, really? And he's like, thanks, man. I need to hear that. And he goes under the table, and Claire's like, does that really happen? He's like, fuck no. It's like, I love it. It's like, yeah, you are a good dad. So Claire goes under the table and is like, she wants both of you here. So they both go under the table. Then Carmi sees Richie's like is like, yo, what are you doing down here? Then he gets involved, and then slowly but surely everyone else comes in as well. I love Nat goes under there, and then like Francie follows her because she's like, oh, you're trying to avoid me. Oh, this is what this is. Then eventually both of the facts come. Chester, Marcus, Stevie, Kelly. We just kind of get everyone, like all the players under the table, trying to like make her feel better about like the dance, not having to do it. Tiff comes along too, and then everyone kind of goes around the circle talking about their fears. I love that. I think it was Richie that was like, he's scared of AI, the singularity. Somebody was talking about, someone got dark and real about their like the dread of the world or whatever. I forgot who it was. I don't think it was. It might have been Kelly that got super serious and dark about her fears, and then we got to Carm, and it's like, oh, he's like, what's the opposite of chaos? And Claire's like, peace. And he's like, then math. And they're like, oh yes, you really are bad at math. And Tiff leans in, but to Evie, it's like, but you're really good at math. I even love later on Claire busts his balls when they're dancing and like, yeah, when you were talking about your fear, I thought you were going to say refrigerators. It's like, of course you got to take that dig at him. It's just, it is what it is. He will always have to like live that down and got to take that on the chin. But eventually, like, Evie admits that she was scared of dancing, but everyone's like, it's okay. You don't have to dance if you don't want to. And it's like, you had Ted taking like a group photo, just everyone saying bear. And it's so beautiful. And then everyone gets from underneath the table. We had that scene with Richie and Jimmy, and Richie brings up the garden, the sand garden in Kyoto, and I thought it was beautiful. Once again, the whole metaphor is like we're all like the sand is the thing that connects us, but we're all these rocks spread out. And he's like, I think I figured out my place. He's like, I for so long thought I was one of the rocks. He's like, I think I'm the sand. And Jimmy's just takeaway is like, okay. And I'm like, I think it's almost a situation of, and I guess it almost makes sense considering his role in the families and his role in everything. Him being the sand more rather than the rocks. Kind of the sand that like everyone's kind of scattered and he kind of brings everyone together. He's a connection between Tiff and the Berzados and this entire like crazy family. He's kind of like that sand. He's like that web that kind of connects everything. It's really fascinating when you really break that down and think of it like that. I mean, I could be like interpreting that the wrong way, that him being the sand in this like sand garden metaphor. As I brought up earlier, Francine and Nat being on good terms again, being like, I miss you. Even though like Nat was gonna text that to her in episode 2, but then like deleted it and was about to say go fuck, but then like didn't get a chance to. So it's like, I missed you. And Nat's like, I was wondering what you were up to and whatever you were doing, it was probably great. She's like, yeah, it really, really is great. So it's like, right, can we go back to being friends? It's like, cool, as long as you don't fuck me over, because if you do, I'll kill you. It's like, well, if you fuck me over, I'll kill you. And then they hug it out. You're like, yeah. So whatever years of beef that they had seems to be done for now, so they're in a much, much better place. Richie dancing with Sid, and eventually everyone kind of switches partners and stuff, but Richie and Sid dancing is super cute. But he ultimately asked her, like, yo, like, what's that thing you wanted to talk about? She's like, oh, like, the thing she was nervous about. And she's like, oh, it's a decision. And he's like, oh, did you make the right one? She's like, I think there's only one choice, and we don't know what that choice is. I think she's going to choose to leave. Just because, like, spoilers, I didn't read because like none of the episodes really have descriptions. Like they have like super vague descriptions like on Hulu. But the title of the season finale makes me feel like that's going to be the case. Like what choices she's going to make. I won't spoil it, like in case you're avoiding episode title, but I think it's kind of clear what choice she's going to make. But we'll see. Um, I'll go ahead and say it. At this point, not having seen the rest of the season, I've had a feeling like she will go the Adam route. I don't think, but she still hasn't solidified anything yet. And once again, I brought this up last episode. I don't know if Carmi and him talked about it, so maybe, but I feel like he probably would have referenced that, or maybe he talked about it in a way where Carmi pretended like he knew what was what. Um, Because even Carmi brought up the whole, because like Tiff and Frank were like, oh, because I think Carmi was like, oh, you should come by the beef. It's like, well, I mean, the bear. It's like, oh, we tell that to Richie all the time, but he tells us like, oh, it has to be perfect, and Carm doesn't think. He's like, well, yeah, he's trying a lot. He's good. He's doing a lot of good, and trying to make it perfect and stuff like that. So I think that's going to motivate Carmi to try and do even better because like okay, like you want things to be absolutely perfect for them to show up and be there. So obviously Evie looking at everybody and just being like, oh, fine, one dance, you get one dance, and this is gonna be like this one time, it's only gonna be for like a minute, and Frank accepts it. So they finally get on the dance floor, do their thing too, which was absolutely adorable. And I referenced him dancing and kind of the end of their conversation, but the Claire and Carm of it all, which I love the Neil thing where he's like, yo, like, talking to Carm, like, yo, she's so beautiful. And Claire's like, oh, that's so sweet. And he's like, what are you talking about? She's like, I heard what you said. He's like, I didn't say anything. He's like, no, we heard you. No, it's like Carm's like, no, I heard you. He was like, I said Claire Bear is here. I'm like, what? He got so nervous in that moment. I think he got too much inside his own head about that. I wonder if that was a little bit of Francine getting into his head because him and Ted were talking about like Francine getting in like into their girlfriends' heads, but now it's like, oh, now you're getting into our heads too. So I don't know if that's a little bit of that nervousness or what. But he talks about, Claire gets him to kind of open up a little bit, Carmi, and ask him, like, no, like, in general, like, are you okay? And he's like, getting better. And you? She's like, getting better. And he talks about how he, things are terrifying, but he is trying to be a little more honest with people about how he's feeling and what, and telling people things. Like, he's trying to be a little more comfortable with that. Once again, I get it. Like, that is like when you've kind of spent so much of your life not doing that, it's a hard thing to kind of come out your show to do it. Like, if someone asks you like, how are you? And you just give like a vague answer or the generic answer of, I'm good. Could you just, it's not the easiest thing to always be like, well, being honest about how you feel, because sometimes you don't know how you feel. And it's like, I don't know if I don't know is a good enough answer when someone asks that. And I don't know if it's really in a position to really like go into the depths of like the layered thing of, I don't really know how I'm feeling. He ended up telling that, I thought was so beautiful bringing this back. The story they told, I can't remember what episode it was, but it was like the opening of one of the episodes where she had talked about like a girl who had fell into glass and like cut herself up at a party, and the whole conversation about like she was laughing. Why? Because she didn't feel it yet, which there was layers to that about like how Carmi hadn't felt it yet, about like the scar on his hand, but also like the general conversation about like everything between him and Claire. But he explains like the true story behind that. He said like, oh, he would grabbed onto a hot pot or whatever, and Claire was like, oh, you must have really grabbed it because this is a pretty deep scar. We find out the day he found out from Nat that Michael died, he like didn't want to think about it, so he put his hand on the stove and held it there. And he's like, it wasn't from a hot pot. She's like, I didn't, and Claire's like, I didn't think it was. As a medical professional, she probably could tell, like, there's more to that story. But her whole thing was never, like, wanting to pull too much out of Carmi. She didn't want to scare him away. As she made that clear in episode 3, so. Who knows what the future holds for them? Maybe this is a step in the right direction of them getting back together. I mean, I think probably even now they're not 100% clear on where they stand, but I think we're etching towards something, whether that's just like us being friends, us still in the process of figuring things out. It's going to be interesting to see where that ultimately ends up going too. I kind of would want them to get back together. Once again, my thought was like, I never talked about this, but like someone had suggested a Sid and Richie of it all, enemies to lovers thing, which I was like, yo, I'd be down for that. I don't know if that would ever happen because I think other people have talked about this, because I think even Io's talked about it, since people have like, that's been like a fan thing of people wondering if like Sid and Carmen would ever get together, and I think she's made it clear like, as long as you build up to it, sure, she just wouldn't want it to happen out of nowhere. But I think she already likes their dynamic of them just being friends and buddies and just having the relationship they are in. I don't think she would want to complicate that, even though as complicated as it is, but she likes the complicated nature of what it is now versus like turning it into something more. So I could kind of see a Sid and Carmi, but I don't know. I go back and forth because sometimes I would want them to be the thing, but then I wouldn't, because I think him and Claire would be nice together. But then also like the Richie and Sid seems like that'd be really interesting too. Maybe Sid just doesn't float that way. Either way, so like we don't know. So her love life isn't really anything we've ever really explored. Only time was like when Marcus was obviously into her, and like that didn't obviously work out, but because it's like, yo, she just looked at Marcus as like a friend. So, that's all we've ever really dabbled in that love life situation. So, but I do love the episode ending the way it does, where like, Richie's alone in this place, and then he gets that photo from Ted from like, the Bears, and he smiles, and it's just like, I think there was some, I think, like I said, he definitely got his catharsis out from this situation as well. There's other characters still, Carmi still got to deal with some stuff. I think Claire still got some stuff to deal with. Richie's in a better place. Tiff and Frank, all of that's kind of in a better place. But, definitely Sid still got, a choice and decision to make. So, like I said, just a fantastic episode. There was a lot here, and I'm sure there's still a lot I'm missing in the grand scheme of things, that I didn't cover everything over it. But it's just, this is definitely one of those episodes I can't wait to go back through and just, see the stuff I forgot. Like, oh, I should have talked about this, should have talked about that. It's going to be one of those things, because I've watched Fishes, like, multiple times. It's one of the episodes I like to go back and watch people's reactions to as well. That and Forks. But yeah, I'm running my mouth off enough at this point. I'm very excited to see where the next episode takes us going forward with all of this. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.